Hey there, homeowners and potential home buyers. This is Amir Syed with your Mortgage Minute. And today I'm joined by Paul Youkhana of the law offices of Paul A. Youkhana. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you for having me.
For sure. So Paul is going to help us understand exactly what a real estate attorney does in a residential transaction. Paul, in very simplistic answers, what exactly does a real estate attorney do for a home buyer in a residential transaction?
For a typical transaction, the attorney is going to have a very, very big role because from the beginning, especially when you're dealing with first-time home buyers, and to me, a first-time home buyer is not only somebody who, literally is buying for the first time, but somebody that maybe has not purchased or gone through the process within the past 2 or 3 years because so many things have changed. My number one job is to explain to them what exactly this process is going to entail and what the important parts of the contract are and what they need to be aware of throughout the process. So that I would say is the main kind of objective of having an attorney on board.
Okay, at what point in the process does a home buyer need a real estate attorney?
The earlier the better. Typically, most times a attorney is going to get involved, ironically, after the contract is actually executed. Typically, you would think that an attorney would be involved before any kind of a contract is executed, but in the real estate industry, the contract will be executed by both sides, and then it's sent on to the attorney, which at that point, because there's the attorney review period, we're allowed to go through it and propose certain modifications to the terms of the contract other than the purchase price. And that's when I have my initial conversation with the client and go through the entire contract, pointing out what the important aspects of it are, and of course answering their questions.
So Paul, once a home buyer has a home inspection report back, you as a real estate attorney, what's your involvement in working with the buyer and the buyer's real estate agent in regards to the home inspection and the attorney review?
What I usually tell my clients is you're going to get that inspection report back. The first thing to do is go over it with your agent because you've both been to the property, you've both seen it. And what I tell them is as you're going through it, keep in mind, number one, look out for the major issues. Cracks in the foundation, water leaking in from a chimney, those sort of things. Watch out for those major defects that could cost a large amount of money to repair. And just make a list of what are the deal killers for you. What are the items that either you want fixed or you would need a credit for in order to move forward with the deal. And once they have that, I'll have a conversation with them and include it in my attorney review letter and send it over to the seller's attorney at that point.
So one might argue, why would a real estate attorney be needed? Why can't they do it themselves, especially in the state of Illinois, which is an attorney state? From your experience, what specifically value are you adding to the home buyer?
Well, number one, in going through the contract and explaining to you the terms of the contract, because there's, from the attorney review period and the inspection period, you have the mortgage contingency period, you have a lot of different terms and paragraphs within the contract themselves that only an attorney would be qualified to explain to you the true meaning of what it means. How can you get your earnest money back? Are there ways, which is one of the questions you get from a client, is I'm giving my earnest money, they don't understand that they can get that back if something happens during the inspection period and they don't come to an agreement with the seller on a credit or repairs, or if they can't get the financing in place for whatever reason by the mortgage contingency date. So the importance pre-closing is the review of the contract and giving them the layout of the process. And then obviously at closing, you need somebody to sit there and go through a stack of documents, when you're financing a deal, and explain all the loan documents and what they mean and the terms and that sort of thing. So as much as an agent is helpful and your mortgage broker or your lender, you need that attorney to be there to really fine-tune things and fully explain some of the aspects of the process.
What typically happens at the actual closing table?
So a typical closing that would run smoothly, I usually tell my clients, expect to be there for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. And what's going to happen is you're going to come in, we're going to sit down, you're going to provide your photo IDs to the closer because they'll be notarizing most of the paperwork. And then we get a stack of documents from the lender and just start going through them one by one. You're going to sign your name over, it feels like a million times, but we'll go through the documents, I'll explain them, answer questions, just so you get try to get a full understanding. It's very hard to get a full understanding at closing of everything, but you want to know all the major points and topics that are being covered in those documents.
Okay. Does a real estate attorney have any involvement post-closing?
Typically you will have some, because you're at closing also you're going to get the deed and get a look at the deed, which is conveying the property from the seller to the buyer. So you're going to check, number one, to make sure that's okay. And then once it's recorded, I have them sent to my office. Once it's recorded at the Cook County Recorder's office, I'll have it sent to my office so I can make a copy of it for my file and then send the original to the client. So that's happening post-closing. If if everything has gone smoothly, there's not as much of a need for the attorney, but I will follow up to make sure that my client, little things like applying for a homeowner's exemption on your real estate taxes. If the previous owner had not done it, you're going to need to do it anyway if you're living there as your principal residence, and just a follow up to make sure they are in contact with their accountant, because now they're going to be paying interest with their mortgage, and that's going to have consequences for their taxes at the end of the year.
So thank you, Paul. That was very good information. What I would suggest is, in the bottom of this video, there's a comment section. You're more than welcome to post your questions there. And we'll be monitoring it and answering anything that we might have missed here as well. Excellent. Cool. Well, thanks, Paul.
Good.
Thank you.